Today, I had the opportunity to interview the Brown Feminist. Now, if you are thinking about moving to Ottawa and also finding work in Ottawa, you're definitely going to want to stick around and watch this full interview. We really talk about the challenges and also the benefits of moving to the city and what Ottawa has to offer. Now, the Brown Feminist information and all of her services can also be found in my description below. I hope you enjoy watching. Hi, everyone. Today, I want to introduce my special guest, and I've never done this format before, so I hope you enjoy it. Today, we have the Brown Feminist, who is a clinical researcher, lives in Ottawa like myself, and also actually consults people to get into the same field. So, to begin, I want to make this really informal. But I want to hear a lot about your move to Ottawa, your move to Canada. My channel is full of people looking to relocate and actually move to Ottawa and or Canada. And I'm just so curious how that process was for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me collaborate with you, Candace. So,
Yeah.
hi, everyone. I am the Brown Feminist. That's my screen name that I go by. And as Candice mentioned, I am a clinical researcher, clinical research professional, which kind of means that I work in the clinical trials and clinical research industry. I primarily work in a hospital setting. So I work for the Ottawa Hospital, and I have a background in both research and nursing, which helps. And in my field of work, I find a lot of people who are new to Canada or new to Ottawa and Ontario, and I see people who are coming into this field from different backgrounds. So we have a lot of IMGs, which are international medical graduates. So people who are physicians outside of Canada, people who come from a nursing background, from a physiotherapy background, kinesiology, mental health psychologist background. So we find all kinds of different people coming into this field because it's such a I want to say like diverse field. So it really
Definitely.
harnesses all the different skills from people.
Mhm.
And then there are ways that you can like standardize your skills to make sure you also know like the ABCs of getting into clinical
Yeah, and
research.
I think moving to Canada or Ottawa in particular, there's so many differences. And a lot of people moving here do work in the medical field, is what I've noticed. There's so many different streams, but obviously we have a huge, healthcare sector here, which is another huge pro. Similar to Toronto, like our healthcare sector here is huge for jobs.
Absolutely. I think Ottawa is known for the two things, which is government workers and healthcare workers. So definitely lots of great hospitals. And I've noticed in contrast to some of the other towns surrounding Ottawa, what I love about the Ottawa hospitals is they have a big focus on research, big focus on innovation. So it's not just providing care to the community, which they obviously do, but both the Bruyere, the Ottawa Hospital, St. Vincent, there's all of these different fields of research going on. There's also lots of pharma companies, contract research organizations which implement clinical trials here. Drug discovery is happening here. And of course, being close to the government, you have like Health Canada, you have Public Health Agency of Canada, you have Ontario Health. So you get to work with like multiple levels of government. Ottawa Public Health itself is huge and does like a lot of great work. We saw that
Yeah.
during COVID. So
Yeah.
lots of opportunities here for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you came here how many years ago was it now?
So it's now been just about 10 years, which
Oh my
seems
God.
crazy to say, but I was
Wow.
in my early 20s coming in and right into school, which is, I think, the experience of a lot of immigrants as well. Because I've seen people like my uncles and aunts generation who like either migrated here with a young family, or I've seen a lot of people coming in as international students, eventually, working their way, getting a PR, settling down here, and, they want to settle in Ottawa because it's such a great place to also raise a family, buy a home. It's got all
Yeah.
of those features, but also a lot of good jobs, which is a great blend of being a big city and a small town, is you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, that's what I'm finding. Like a lot of people come here, number one for like longevity. Like I find sometimes Toronto can be a city where people go for a year or two and then they leave. People tend to stay here for the long term, as you have, right? Like now it's been 10 years. So that's amazing that you've, stuck around. So you obviously really like it.
I do. In fact, there was a time when I was like, oh, I should go to Toronto or Montreal. I spent a year working in Montreal, but I
Okay.
came back to Ottawa, which means, once you fall in love in Ottawa, you never kind of go back.
Yeah.
And again, there was the affordability for housing
Yep.
issue. There was enough jobs. There was like the language, like I primarily speak English. So
Yeah.
Ottawa is a great place if you do that, or even if you're bilingual with English, French. It's also a great place as the national capital region for that. But different cities have like different healthcare populations that you want to serve. So you do want to look into that as well. But for
That's a
English
good point.
speakers like me, lots of jobs here.
Yeah, okay, that's really great to know. Now, when you came here and you've obviously still kind of, you've been here now 10 years, but 10 years flies by. I know a lot of people ask me, um, kind of maybe nuances you weren't expecting or things that surprised you, kind of the good and the bad. I'd love to hear from your perspective.
Sure. I think most of us, I want to say like immigrants that come from Asia, we're a lot more populated. So Ottawa felt a lot smaller with less people. Now, the good and the bad here is Ottawa's grown a lot. So Ottawa just crossed like 1 million people, I
Yes.
think, a year or two ago.
Yes.
And now we're one of the like faster growing or fastest growing cities in Canada. So it is now getting there where you can find all kinds of food. So there was a
Yeah.
time people would say Ottawa's like not diverse in its food scene, but now like 5 minutes from my place, I can get a samosa, I can get like halal meats, I can get like any kind of food, like Italian shawarmas, like
Yeah.
everywhere. I know they joke and say that shawarma is the official food of Ottawa.
It is.
Lots of amazing Lebanese food. So there's like a great variety now. So there's definitely a plus, and it has grown. Like I do think people who came 30 years ago and now,
Yeah.
like there is a big difference. And now we get everything that we would get like in any other metropolitan city for sure.
I always say Ottawa's it's like a small town, but you get the big city perks. We have everything that Toronto has, but we don't have the craziness yet. That might change, but we still
I
have
love that.
like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I'm like, we still have the ability to just kind of live just a simpler life, a less crazy life than a big city, but we have everything you could want. And including the people always like make fun of me. They're like, the food in Ottawa is not good. I'm like, we have everything you could want. And it's actually really like we have a lot of great options. Now, when you came here, I know like people will talk about friendliness and safety. What did you find and still find? Like, are you finding people in Ottawa friendly? Were you able to kind of come in here and form a community for yourself? How did you find that?
Absolutely. So safety wise, I always feel Ottawa was a very safe place. Like I know my dad owns a home in the suburb, and then I live more downtown. But in both places, very community oriented. You just have
Yeah.
to make a little bit of effort to get to know your neighbors, and then you make like friends for life. If you become a second family, you can leave your door open and go to sleep. 99% of the time, nothing's gonna happen.
I always say
Um,
that. I don't want to say that, but I'm like,
yeah.
you'll be fine.
Fingers crossed that we stay this way. I have a
Yeah.
neighbor in my apartment building who's been in hospital, and you won't believe the number of neighbors that have been going to visit her, taking care of her
Oh,
cat and dog. And that's kind of the vibe I've felt
yeah.
here in Ottawa. We have that small town vibe. We're not all crazy busy, crazy adventurous. We're like simple people. We love a simple life. We have cutting edge opportunities in work. And
Yeah.
then in our personal life, we like to take it easy.
Yeah.
But I don't agree that Ottawa is boring. I know it
Me
has this
neither.
image. I totally don't agree with that.
You have to make it, your own and you really have to put yourself out there but there's so much going on and I feel like we're on the cusp of, we have this like hidden secret. Like the more people that think Ottawa's boring in a way, I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
good. Don't,
good. I don't want
like
it overcrowded.
right? And then it keeps, like we already have a population issue right now. We have a housing issue for sure. So it's, we don't have massive amounts of people coming here like Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, like they do, but we're still a little bit of a secret. I think we're growing every single
Yeah.
year. But with that comes a lot of pros, comes a lot of perks. I mean, we have a lot of space to grow into. I'm glad that you feel the people here really, I believe they are. Everyone has a different experience. So I think the people actually in Ottawa is what makes it a really great place to be. Um, it's such a huge pro for me. Now, I know you said you're living downtown, so you obviously said safety wise, you feel comfortable. Like that's a major concern for a lot of people as well. If they want to walk their dog at night, will I feel okay? I personally would really anywhere in the city, but everyone's a little different.
Yeah, so I happen to live in like a very accessible building and neighborhood. So
Okay.
I have neighbors who are like fully wheelchair and they go to walk their dogs in the park. And,
Oh,
it's that accessible. They can go up to a quickie. There's ramps everywhere
yeah,
and wheelchair
great.
accessible stuff, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
And then animal friendly, pet friendly buildings and homes and neighborhoods. So everyone on the roads, like, they're cautious. Okay, there's somebody's dog walking. You want to give them their space. You want to slow down the
Yeah.
car. Everyone's really like, they accommodate when you have young children or pets, and I love that. We even see cat walking as becoming really common in my neighborhood,
People in
which
Ottawa
I
love
love.
their pets. I'm telling
Yeah,
you, if you have a pet and you come to Ottawa, you'll fit right in. Like
yeah.
people are obsessed with their animals here.
Yesterday I was at the grocery, and the cart where these used to sit the kids, there was a cat there, and the cat was like not stressed out, chilling while the cat parents were getting the groceries. I was like, I love this.
It's so funny. It's unique, right? Like and I don't know if every city is similar, but it seems to be really interesting here. Now, another thing I know people actually a lot of the time choose not to live here because of the winter and the climate and the cold and the snow. Are you getting used to it? What are your thoughts on that?
I think when I first came as an immigrant, for sure, there was a big shock factor just because I'd never seen this height of snow before. But a lot of it, I feel, was mental. Once you can mentally be
Yeah.
confident about, like, this is what I wear and this is how I layer up and these are my, snow safe boots and stuff. And then you find ways to fall in love in the winter. When you do winter sports, I really look forward to the Winterlude Festival in Ottawa,
Yeah.
ice skating on the Rideau Canal. There's like hot maple syrup and like all the things that are seasonal. Once you focus on that, you're like, I don't care. In fact, the snow is beautiful. We want a white Christmas, a white New Year. Like you start enjoying the vibe and you start
Yeah.
embracing the winter more.
I agree. And I always tell people like the crazy storms you see or the crazy cold, it's maybe like 5 days are like that out of the whole winter. It's
Yeah.
really like those days are kind of a pain, sure. But our city's well equipped to take care of it. And you just get into like every season, you just kind of go into a different phase of your life, you know? I think other cities it's a lot different, but here you just really learn to get used to the winter months. And I hate the cold, but I'm like, you know what? I make it work.
I think it depends on the career you have to. So, for example, with me, I work at the hospital a couple days a week. So sometimes I have to go in. But with my
Yeah,
husband's work, he works for the city. He often, like when it's a crazy snow day, they'll be like, today, everyone's just going to do work from home. So it's really great
exactly.
accommodation. You can just stay home, stay warm, stay cozy, do your work. And everyone understands because, you're working locally. So,
Yeah.
we just adjust around those couple of days of the year, like
I
you said.
know. It's not like the whole winter is this crazy blizzard. It's really not like that. Now, I guess I'm so curious if you have any major cons about Ottawa. You're like, oh, this bugs me. I wish this were different. Because I think everyone thinks I'm so biased. I'm sick of giving my opinion. I want to hear if you have a major kind of gripe with the city.
I think the major gripes I would have had, like Ottawa's been overcoming them. Like I said, the population was much less diverse, and I found like less when I first arrived or when my dad first arrived 20 years ago. Like it was different then.
Yeah.
But we've quickly overcome all of these things, and now we have all these communities. Like, if you're looking for a different space for prayer, you're looking for a different kind of clothes, ethnic foods. We've like as a society, as a community, we're like quickly overcoming the things that
Yeah.
used to make us a little bland.
Yeah.
So currently I have no cons for Ottawa. I love it. In fact,
I
last year
know.
I think one of the years we didn't have the canal freeze over, and I missed that it wasn't cold enough, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh my god, this is me saying it's not cold
Wow.
enough, and I used to be scared of the cold. So you do grow into it. Ottawa's a place you grow to love.
It's so funny. Like you have a really good attitude about it. I think that goes a long way, but how much you've like kind of grown into it, right? And I do find like, a lot of people also ask me about diversity. Will I be able to find a community here for me? And obviously, it's hard for me to sometimes say, um, what is out there, but I do feel like we've gotten really diverse, especially in the last 5 years
Absolutely.
or so, 10 years.
Yeah
And I'm glad to hear like you've also seen that. It's not just, coming from me that you also kind of agree with that.
yeah Yeah, I think I will definitely comment and say that the concerts, like I speak a language called Bengali. So Bengali concerts are not happening routinely. Every month there's something new. There's like special theaters where they're bringing in those shows from my native language. And there, I know there's been Bollywood for many, many years. So we're seeing more of that. So you don't feel like you're missing out on anything or you're missing home and being nostalgic. Because I
Yeah.
think in these 10 years, my friend was also saying, Ottawa's getting to be a cool city when you're getting more international concerts here and stuff like that. So you're getting the local ballet, you're getting like the little Ottawa theater, and then you're
Yeah.
also getting all of these like international like festivals coming in and stuff.
Yeah.
So we're now starting to see all that blend and all these options to choose from when you're going out on a Friday night.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that. So I'm glad you do as well. It's great to hear. I definitely see our city changing, but it's really getting a lot better. Even with our plans for the Canadian Tire Center, like our concert hall being moved downtown and the plans for that, like our city is just really expanding. And yeah, we do have a small downtown, but I always tell people too, like actually the outskirts of Ottawa, like we have the cutest small towns that are not far from the city and I think offer so much more than a downtown does. Like a downtown core can be a little boring. These small towns I think are so cool. I know I was watching some of your YouTube videos and you like to go on hikes and walks and things like that, go to different parks. So you really explore all around.
Absolutely. And I agree with like the suburbs too, because now my cousins and friends are starting to buy homes in like Stittsville and stuff. And I know those at one point, they used to be their own small towns that are kind of
Mhm.
now amalgamated into Ottawa. So they still have kept their heritage of like having those
Yeah.
farmers markets
Yeah.
and their own stuff there. So I love visiting and going to their farmers markets in different neighborhoods. I know the Glebe is like one of my favorite neighborhoods in Ottawa too, which is closer to downtown, but it has like the flea markets and the Christmas markets and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And there's something all year round. So each neighborhood, I feel like, has a different flavor. Like I'm
Yeah.
close to like the Sandy Hill area, which is more like student vibe, young
Yep.
professional. And then you move to each part of Ottawa and then you find a whole different thing. I hear that Canada is becoming like this tech zone where you have like Amazon, Siemens, and everyone opening like a mini Silicon Valley.
It
So they're
is.
all like getting different vibes in
Yeah.
the same city.
Now, as you kind of stay in Ottawa and as you kind of, in the coming years, I guess, are your plans to move into a suburb or is that kind of, and I'm curious, what suburb are you thinking? What are you looking for? What do you think certain suburbs can provide? I'm just curious to see what you have your sights on.
Sure. So I do have my husband's family who live very close to Ottawa in the Perth Smiths Falls area.
Okay.
So we want to move a little bit closer so we can still commute to work in Ottawa and still be able to visit them pretty frequently. So like something in the West End,
Yeah.
whether it be Canada, whether it be Stittsville, whether it be like Barhaven, something
Yeah.
around there, which is like an equidistant drive. And the drives in Ottawa are not that crazy. Like
No.
now and then you might have like a highway accident, God forbid something bad happens, it slows down. But a typical day, I can get from anywhere to anywhere in like 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with that. People drive
Yeah.
hours in Toronto. People drive hours when coming from like Kemptville to work. So I have no complaints about the drive.
Yeah, I always feel like our suburbs are so close to our like downtown core where you might be commuting. It's unique. Like a lot of cities don't really have that. Like who can drive 20 minutes from their suburban home and be downtown in a city? Like that is really cool to me. So I just wanted to mention, so for everyone kind of watching this, I obviously, help people relocate here and help people, actually get into homes here. Now, what you do is really cool. You also help people who are coming here, but you kind of help, like job consultations and you kind of help career consultations and things like that. And interview prep is another thing you do. And I think that's so fascinating because people coming from different areas of the world, I think it's challenging to understand the differences in Ottawa and what, an interview might look like here, what a career might look like here. So I'd love for you to just explain a little bit of that.
Sure. I think the service I provide now through like my consulting agency is exactly what I felt was missing when I was going through that. And I'm
Yeah.
like, now that I understood the hard way by doing the job, by failing at interviews, and I
Yeah.
figured, okay, this is the language they want, this is the pitch they want, this is the way they screen resumes for certain keywords. I'm like, okay, now I want to make it easier for other people. So I think a big thing that we do differently in other countries, and when you transition to Ottawa, is kind of figuring out the right pitch. Because, like, for example, in South Asia, I feel like the job market's so different. They think the more qualified the better, the more experience the better. But in the Canadian job market, they overqualification is a thing. If they feel
Yeah.
like you're too qualified, they can't afford you, or you won't stick around for long, they might not hire you. So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to structure your resume to make it the most relevant, not necessarily the most qualified in a field. So there's these little tricks like that that you want to do to have the highest chance of getting interview calls for every job application. And then you know that if you have the interview, how to definitely land the job, what kind of, language to use to express yourself in a way that, local recruiters would understand. Because, the job market language is also so different, even if
So
it's the same
different.
field.
It's so fascinating what like a gap in the market you found. Um, to really, and I think there's so many other career fields that really need someone like you. Because it's so true, getting a job is hard enough as it is, and then putting your best foot forward and having someone help you do that is imperative, right? So I think it's so, amazing. Kind of you took, your trials and tribulations and all of your challenges and are now helping people, get in, get into their industry here, find a career here in the medical field and learn from you. I think that's such a good idea.
And I think the biggest thing I feel like is that I can connect with people who have the initial immigrant struggle when you're kind of,
Yeah.
you want a job in your field, but then if it takes a few months, you need a survival job. So I've kind of been through every single phase. There isn't a survival job I haven't taken. And I know how to still harness that, how to use that for a recommendation, how to use that to show, hours of customer service experience. You can come
Yeah.
and do retail work and still frame it in your resume in a way to show, therefore you now know how to handle cash, how to handle like privacy or
Yep.
confidentiality, how to get certain workplace trainings. So there's a way to still harness that while still doing the survival jobs and working towards a career that you really want.
Yeah, it's such a good idea. I feel like you touch on everything that people are thinking, which is so amazing. And because you've gone through it, it's especially, if you're coming here, let's say, even you haven't even been in Canada, that's such a challenge. So I think to have you as a resource is amazing. If you're watching this, I'm going to link the Brown Feminist, all of her info in the description. And you have a really great website with all of your services broken down. And it's really, um, and then you can actually book meetings with you, eh? Like I do something kind of
Absolutely.
similar, but I think it's so smart that you do that.
Yeah, I like to do a lot of free resources like you do as well. You put out all this information from free if people can take them time to watch it. But then some people need a little extra help. They want something
Yeah.
uniquely catered
More
to their needs.
personalized, right?
Exactly. So for
Yeah.
that, I'm also available to book a consult with me,
Yeah.
one-on-one time. And then there's different kind of ways. If you want to go to grad school, you want a job, you want to get a promotion, negotiation strategies with HR or management, all of that stuff is like broken down different services. But anything I see that people are asking very frequently, very commonly, I put it together in a video because I want the general information out there.
Yeah.
If you can benefit from that, awesome.
Yeah, you do some really great videos. Like I think we have the both of us do very niche videos. It's not for a huge audience, but it's for the select few that need the information. And I find you do a really good job of that. Like really unique topics, really in depth. Like you really take a lot of time and provide really good resources, which I think is so nice.
Thank you. And I love your content as well. Just like I was
Yeah.
telling you before we started this collab is I love watching your Instagram reels because I'm like end
Uh,
of the day, you don't always feel like, a very heavy material and you
no.
just make it like small little packets of stuff. I'm like,
I'm
you're in a
glad.
different neighborhood each day on my reel and you're talking about what's, good and bad about it
Oh,
because
I'm glad.
like we were saying a little while ago, every neighborhood has a personality, and you want to make sure that
Yes.
personality is a fit for you. So you want to know what kind of neighbors live there, what
Yep.
kind of vibe there is.
That's what I really try to focus on. I mean, there's so many neighborhoods to live in here and they're all so different. So it's you really need someone, not really like you need to help finding a house, sure, but it's really the neighborhood, where you want to be, where you want to live. It's going to actually dictate your lifestyle here. And, you know, if you enjoy it here, I think where you live plays a huge role in that. So I try to provide, a lot of resources to help people make that decision because it's so hard, especially when you haven't been here before. It's like, where do you even begin? It's challenging to figure out, and it's hard to Google. I think same with your fields. You can't really Google, a personal kind of review or a reflection of something. So I find video is a really good tool for that, just to, you know, get your message out there to as many people as possible.
Yeah, I think there's a huge difference in looking at like statistics. This neighborhood has this income level versus like visually seeing it, you walking around it, you showing a house, you talking
Yeah.
about, these are the common kind of professionals who live and work here. Like, I
Yep.
don't want my neighbor to be someone who, like, has similar experiences
Yeah.
or people with young families. I would love
Yep.
that.
No, exactly. Well, thank you. I'm so glad. I really, I think we can end it here. I mean, I really appreciate you agreeing to kind of speak, and I'm so happy to hear your perspective. And I hope we can do this again. And if you're watching this and you have
Absolutely.
questions or comments, please leave them in the just or the comment box below. I'm just curious to hear, even if you've moved here and you've had, an interesting kind of situation coming here or things you didn't expect. I'd love to hear it. I think it's fascinating and it actually helps me, produce more content to answer more questions. Because sometimes I don't know what people are wondering. I'm sure it's the same with you, right? It's like, what do people need to know? And I try to come up with it, but I'm always curious. So if you have anything that you want answered, let us both know. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And again, the Brown Feminist, all of our info will be linked below. And yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.